Hey, this is Binnie Cooley with Seekins Precision. I'm just like to cover some tips on how to be able to possibly shoot tighter groups with your Seekins rifles. First thing we got to do is make sure we've got a high caliber rifle like the Seekins Precision. We want to make sure our ammunition marries up to that. I like shooting the Hornady. This is a 6.5 Creedmoor, but basically you want to make sure that you're checking for different types of ammunition. Get 2 or 3 boxes of different manufacturers, and you'll find a bullet that your rifle actually likes better. Mine seems to really like the Hornady, and that's what I run in this gun. One of the common problems I see when we're trying to shoot groups is people don't know how to set their scope up. The rear of the scope is called your diopter setting, and this focus right here is strictly just for getting clarity on your reticle. So how I'll do that is I'll point up to a blue sky or in the clouds or whatever, not moving the gun. I'm gonna turn that back here on the diopter until that reticle looks nice and crisp and clear to my eyes. Now I won't do that with sustained looking through the scope. In other words, I'll look for 2 or 3 seconds, close my eyes, open them back up, because the muscles in the eye can actually help focus, and they'll bring that into clarity, but they can't sustain it. So I want to make sure that reticle is nice and clear from the center all the way down through whatever BDC, bullet drop compensated reticle I may have, or mils. Once that's done, it's a one-time setting for my eyes only, and I always tape mine in place. That ensures that this doesn't move, and it never needs to move again for your eyes. The side parallax is what we want to focus next for the target. This is bringing the target in clarity and focus for your eyes. And basically, we're trying to get the reticle in the same focal plane as the target. So if you were looking at my thumb and you were moving your head around, obviously the thumb would go all over the place. When I have it on the same focal plane, this being my reticle, no matter where you move your head inside the scope from the back here, it does not move off target. So that's critical to get set in there, especially if we're just trying to shoot a tighter group. It's easy to have a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch variance in that if you don't have it adjusted properly on your scope itself. Also, I like shooting off a bipod and a rear bag. I think rear bag is absolutely critical for supporting the weapon system. When these things are put into a vise and shot at the factory for accuracy, they're locked in tight. They're locked in so the gun can't move. We're just trying to replicate that when we're actually driving behind the gun here shooting it. So good bipod up front. You can bag it in the front, but I prefer to have a bipod. It's just more repeatable and easier to be able to shoot groups with. In addition, if I'm running off a hard table like this or concrete, I actually prefer to push into something soft like the dirt. So I'll get just in front of the firing line of my bipod. That allows a little bit of cushion, so as the gun fires, you have less effect on the impact of the bullet going down range if you have any type of torque in the gun itself on the bipod. So it's just a little more forgiving, what it comes down to. Now, a couple of things I want to talk about on the back of the gun. When I'm into the gun here, I want to try and get a natural point aim, meaning that when I come into here and I adjust the back of the gun here by squeezing it up and down, I really don't want to torque the gun pushing it into the target like this, left or right. What I want to do is, if the gun's not pointing right at the target where I want it to be, then I want to adjust the whole system. So if I'm looking at my target here, if I kind of let my shoulder drop off the back of the stock here, the reticle should not go left or right of what I'm aiming at. It should stay centered up. Now your elevation will be different, because now I can squeeze the bag to be able to either lower it or raise it onto my aiming point downrange. But the biggest mistake I see made is I get in my position and I'm only 1 inch off the target. And so I come into my target here like this, and then I push the gun like this, left or right, to bring it into it. That's where you'll start seeing flyers in your group, okay? That's when you'll start having negative results downrange, and we want to eliminate that, okay? So I'm coming into the gun itself. As I do that, again, I'm getting it set up. I'm on my target. Everything's adjusted, my parallax. If I let go of the gun, it's setting on my aiming spot. And I keep the bag tight in the back so I don't get any drop as the gun recoils. And then I just continue to repeat as necessary. So coming in, try and getting squared up behind the gun. Okay, let's talk about the target. So this target I previously shot, and this is what I'm talking about. Couple things. This I would consider a good group for the weapon system and range, and the ammunition. It's about a half MOA, just under a half MOA. Over here on the bottom right, you'll see this is where I actually had to torque the gun in to my aiming spot. And you'll see this flyer out here. That's a common thing to sometimes get that flyer out here when you're torquing the gun back and forth like this, pushing it, forcing it in, instead of having a natural point of aim on the weapon system. And these two groups here is when you're doing everything correct. So meaning that my reticle, when I release the pressure on it, is centered up, okay, onto it. And now I'm doing is just applying pressure to the back of the gun to your lift or drop it down and get the reticle on target. Again, these are just tips that I find to be effective for me. Allows me to be able to see what the gun's actually capable of. And then I know that anything beyond that is just